This is pre-algebra lesson 3-5, solving equations by adding or subtracting decimals. As you might remember, in lesson 2-5, we used the subtraction and addition property of equalities to solve equations involving whole numbers, integers, positive and negative whole numbers. We can use these same exact properties to solve equations with decimals. All the same rules apply. All you have to do is make sure that you keep your equation balanced. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do the exact same thing to the opposite side of the equation. Pay attention to your positive and negative signs, and remember when you add and subtract decimals, line up the decimal point and bring it straight down. So, if we look at this first problem here. 6.8 plus p equals negative 9.7. To get p by itself, we have to subtract 6.8 since it was already added to p. If we do it to one side of the equation, we must do it to the other side of the equation. Okay, these two cancel out, leaving me with p. Both of these numbers are negative, so we can add them together and keep the common sign. 8 7 is 15. 10 and 6 is 16, and this makes it negative. So p is equal to negative 16.5. And you can check these just like we checked problems before. Okay, I can say 6.8 plus negative 16.5. Does that equal negative 9.7? And all I have to do is take 16.5 and subtract 6.8 from that. Let's see here. 8, 7, and 69, and it would be negative, so it checks. Okay. Problem number 2, x plus 4.9 equals 18.8. Right? To get rid of the 4.9, they added it, we will subtract it. You do something to one side of the equation, you must do exactly the same thing to the other side. Make sure with addition and subtraction of decimals, you line up your decimal points. So x will equal, since both of those are, we have 18.8 minus 4.9, I can just subtract like normal. 18 minus 9 is 9, bring down my decimal point. 17 minus 4 is 13, so I have 13.9. Number 3, 14.73 equals negative 24.23 plus b. Now, a lot of times people look at this and say, oh, they added something to b, so we need to subtract it from b. No, b is added to something, and the something that it is added to, if you look carefully, is negative. So what's the opposite of negative 24.23? Well, it is positive 24.23. So we actually need to add 24.23 to both sides of my equation. Because it was negative on the right-hand side, we have to make sure that to get rid of it, we add it. Okay, so 3 and 3 is 6, 7 and 2 is 9, break down the decimal point, 4 and 4 is 8, 2 and 1 is 3, so 38.96. Be careful when you see things that are in front of the variable. Pay attention to whether or not it has a positive or negative sign by it. Okay? All right, let's take a look at a word problem. Pink has a board that is 14.5 feet long. She saws off a piece that is 8 3/4 feet long. Find the length of what is left over. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define a variable. I like to define my variables every time. So I'm going to let x equal the length left over because that's what they told me to find. So that's the easiest thing for me to do, make my variable equal to what I'm looking for. Now I think in my head, my length left over plus my length cut off has to equal the total length of my board. So if I think that, I have my length left over, which is x, plus my length that was cut off, which is 8.75, and that has to equal my total. So here's my equation here. X plus 8.75 equals 14.5. So x plus 8.75 equals 14.5. So since they added 8.75, I will subtract 8.75. Now realize here, since I don't have a digit here, I have to put a 0 so that I subtract it properly. Okay, so subtract, let's see here, 10 minus 5 is 5, 3, 14 minus 7 is 7, and 13 minus 8 is 5, so I have 5.75 feet, so the piece left over is 5.75 feet, and of course it is written in a complete sentence because it is a word problem. look at a couple of other examples. Negative 23.34 equals Q minus 16.99. To get Q by itself, I have to add 16.99 since they subtracted it. So it's going to use Q equals, one's negative, one's positive, which means I actually have to subtract them, since 23.34 would be the larger number with its absolute value. So I can take 23.34 and subtract 16.99. So I can do some borrowing. 14 minus 9 is 5. I can do some more borrowing. 12 minus 9 is 3. Bring out my decimal point. I can't subtract 6 from 2, so I borrow from this to make this 12. 12 minus 6 is 6. So I get 6.35. It should be negative because 23.34 is the larger of the two numbers. So if my answer should be Q is equal to negative 6.35. Let's take a look at the next problem. N minus 5.85 equals 16.25. Well, they subtracted 5.85, so I'm going to add 5.85. This side of the equation becomes my line. Since both the numbers are positive, I can just add them. 5 and 5 is 10. 8 and 2 is 10 plus 1 is 11. 5 and 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11. So I get 21, 22, or 21, 25. Number 7 here, negative 10 equals C minus 2.6. We'll add 2.6 to both sides. These will cancel, leaving with C. Here I've got a negative 10 and a positive 2.6, so I actually have to subtract. But I need to make sure that I line up my decimal points, so I'm going to do it below so that I line them up nice and neatly. Okay, so subtract this and borrow. So I'm going to borrow from 10 negative 9 and make that a 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. Bring down my decimal point. 9 minus 2 is 7. So I end up with C equals negative 7.4 because 10 has a larger absolute value and it was negative. Okay. Oh, one more. I knew I had another problem here somewhere. Another everyday problem. Joe wrote a check for $49.98. His new balance is $169.45. What was his previous balance? Okay. So I'm going to let P equal his previous balance. Remember, it's a whole lot easier to let your variable equal the question they're asking you to. So his previous balance minus his check has to equal his new balance. Okay, previous balance minus check equals new balance. Okay, so I can simply write this as an equation. His previous balance is P minus his check, which is $49.98, has to equal his new balance, which is $169.45. Okay, so there's our equation. To solve our equation, we're going to simply add $49.98 to both sides. Line up your decimal points, line up your digits, these cancel out. P equals 8 and 5 is 13. 10 and 4 is 14. 9 and 9 is 18 plus 1 is 19. 6 and 4 is 10 plus 1 is 11. 2 and 2 is 1. So his previous balance was $219.43. And remember, we write everything in a complete sentence. Those previous balance. Was $219.43. Make sure you label this as in dollars. And make sure you write it in complete sentence. In your homework, I will be looking for the following things. I'm going to highlight these. I will be looking for defining your variable, writing your equation, showing all your work, all this stuff, and then finally writing your answer in a complete sentence. Okay? So make sure you show me all of those things because I will be looking for all of those things for homework. And if I don't see them, you will not get credit for your homework. So solving equations by adding and subtracting decimals, very similar to solving equations by adding and subtracting decimals.